What are your top 3 priorities for our city moving forward?
So top 3 priorities for me, obviously we touched on infrastructure earlier. We have to fix it. We have to start spending the money. We heard the $20 million over a couple of years. It's 4 years. It's exactly what I said it is. We're spending $5 million a year. We need to spend $25 million a year. We can do that again by line iteming budgets. Second thing, public safety. I have a real estate office in downtown. We employ 13 women just in Lake Havasu alone. But my office manager is terrified. My clothing manager is terrified. We have a homeless guy that's literally stalking them. They have to lock the door during business hours. It's insane.
They do.
So we need to, again, start with enforcement, right? Thirdly, city beautification. The city council meeting's going on right now. It's like a war zone. Every single city council meeting is a straight up cat fight. And recently it's become so ridiculous that a $1.5 million splash pad on a $275 million budget becomes the crux of fiscal responsibility or not. And it's insane. You can find that in an afternoon if you line item a budget. On a budget that large, you can find $1.5 million quickly. Our sign, our 2 big rusty poles that are right out in front of my office, we don't have a sign. 10-Day Doors re-engineered that thing. They got it down to less than $500,000 right now. There is no reason why we can't have that. There's no reason when I take my kids to Rotary Park that we have to look at 18-inch weeds growing out of all of our sidewalks. These are cheap things to do that will change the city. So that would be my top 3 things.
So the top 3 things that I'm working on currently is water. Water security is in the forefront of everything that we need to do. So water security is number 1. Fiscal management, continuing to have an open and transparent government, very, very important. And then the citizen-led general plan is another really important component that we utilize the general plan to ensure that we take care of all facets of our community. That will be in front of City Council in the month of June. It's already gone through about an 18-month process of citizen engagement. And then the voters will vote on it in the general election in November. But we'll use that as the guiding document when it comes to all of the things when it comes to planning for growth, planning to ensure that we have employment sectors, planning to ensure that we have education centers where we have enough retail, medical, and all of the other components that so many of our residents ask for every day. So those are the 3 top priorities, but we're a very multifaceted community, and in 2 minutes or less, there's lots of priorities that we have, and we'll continue to work on all of those throughout my term.
Okay. So Dave, I have a personal question for you, Dave. If elected, how will you dedicate the time required to be mayor?
I run a boating website. I'm literally free all day long.
Don't kill the messenger. I'm just up here.
So RDP, the voting website, is fairly, we have our set of moderators, and literally it's fairly on autopilot at this point. We just go out and sell advertising every now and again. So I'm literally free all day long. I can do my work in the middle of the night, or I can do it. I was actually doing work while we were sitting here at the table, but my schedule's pretty free. That's why I always tell everybody if anybody wants to go to lunch, I go to lunch every single day. So if anybody ever has questions or anything of that nature, I'll take you to lunch. Anywhere you want.
Okay, and Cal, I have one for you. If re-elected, will you work on more funding for underground pipelines and road, mill, and fill?
Yeah, so we've been working on that with a plan, and so we would continue that on. That's the one thing you have with me is you have a track record that you can look at and see what we've done. Yeah, so the underground infrastructure that we're working on came from our plan to do that. And so once we got the funding mechanism in place to be able to do that, we now have certainty to be able to bid those out and get those done. So we'll continue to do underground infrastructure, and we'll continue to do roads as well.
Okay, this is going to be for both of you. What can be done about e-bikes? They're motorized vehicles and should require a license, a licensed driver, and insurance just like the motor scooters.
Okay, so the e-bikes down to the channel is a problem. So obviously, first thing I would do is probably put a speed limit in the channel, right? If you're going faster than 5 miles an hour or you're not human powered, It needs to be enforced. As far as the rest of it, man, I'm big on freedom, right? And I grew up in the 80s. I love the idea of kids going out and riding bikes, but it is out of control. These kids are riding up and down Main Street, doing wheelies. They're in traffic.
The high school.
Yeah, the high school. I drop my daughter off at high school almost every morning, and there's hundreds of them, you know. So that's something I'd really like to sit down with the chief of police and a team. Actually, I'd probably sit down with Cal too for his suggestions, but that really needs to be thought through, because you can't just say, I'm going to do this without having repercussions and not having the conversation of how it impacts the future. So one of those particular questions, I'd say I'd like to sit down with a team, in particular the police, some community leaders, and other people, and start throwing things at the wall and see which one makes the most sense.
Okay, Cal?
So I'll start with what we've done already. This is an example of an evolving technology that has really hit communities across the state and across the West and across the country really, really quickly. So we have gone in front of every school-age student, 4th grade and above to 12th grade. We've done that twice now with our school resource officers in partnership with our school district to go over the rules of the road, what to do, what not to do. There is a classification of education also for parents, so the folks buying them, where they think they're buying an e-bike, but it really is an electric motorcycle, not an e-bike, and there's obviously much different rules than that, than an e-bike. And then we also have put in, you have to be under human power in Rotary Park in the Channel, and also on the island. At the time, there was some discussion about using speed limits, but the discussion was told to us that the technology wasn't there. That's since changed, so we'll be looking at that as well. But we'll continue to evolve with education and policies that make sense so we can address it, because it is very, very disturbing for so many of our residents. We want to make sure our e-bikers are safe. We want to make sure that our motorists are safe. But also our walkers and pedestrians that are using the space, they don't hear the e-bike until they're right up on them and they get startled. And so there's lots of concerns, but again, bringing all stakeholders together during that. And last time we had the stakeholders together, we had users that were in their 80s and 90s that were very convincing that they needed to have the ability to have the motorized component of it, because that's how they get their exercise and get out of their home. So how do you balance those needs with community needs? And we'll continue to have those conversations to bring good, smart policy that makes sense for our community, that allows the freedom for our residents.
Your plan for the Downtown Commons Park, and where is the funding for it going to come from?
What's there left to do?
Pretty sure that they're already working on the downtown commons park.
Again,
Well, so I take care of my mom. She's 83 years old and she has a touch of dementia, and I drive her up and down Main Street all the time. Do you know what she says every single time we pass that park? Verbatim. That is the stupidest thing I've ever seen. She literally says it every single day. That thing looks like it belongs in Portland, Oregon or something. It does not belong here. It doesn't have any shade structures. I don't even understand the point of it.
An alien would be the.
But as far as I'm concerned, that thing's already funded and they're finishing it up, so now we're just gonna live with it.
Yeah, so the downtown, the Main Street Commons is a downtown gathering space. It came before us through the America's Best Community Competition. And Lake Havasu City went through this competition in 2016, and it was community-led, and it was two facets. So one facet, we were working on a community revitalization economic development plan, which was citizens from across all sectors of our community came together to put this together. And one of the rising items was to have a downtown gathering space. And so everything about that downtown gathering space has been community-led. And so when it comes to the design, it doesn't offend me that some folks don't like it. I didn't design it. It was done by the community. It was folks that came together at public hearings and outreaches. And the panels that you see there, they're still installing. Some will be finished in the month of June. Once they're all installed, it gets the maximum shade at certain times. And the reason the angles are certain ways is because of all of those components of it. But it's going to be a place that's going to be used for events and activities and gathering for folks, and you already see some of that happening. If you went to the Desert Storm Street Party, you saw that. You went to Winterfest. It's really a great place that people are enjoying, and into the future, I think people will really come to like the Main Street Commons and evolve into some space that people can do all sorts of different things. But the funding for that project was all done either with the ABC winnings or grant dollars. $975,000 of the total project was used with the general fund dollars. So about 21% of the project was paid for with local taxpayer dollars. The rest was all paid for through grants and or the ABC waivers.
So are you socially or fiscally conservative or both?
Well, I don't deny that I am 100% MAGA, if that's what you're asking. When I look back at the Trump boat parades, myself and Gigi put those on, right? That's why they're on my YouTube channel. As far as fiscally conservative, I think I've already kind of made that point 3 or 4 times tonight with line iteming the budgets. I think that we could save a ton of money and do a lot of great for the community with the extra money, things like a splash pad. But I'll give you a quick idea here on a splash pad, right? Right now has become like a hot potato, and it's an entitlement project, meaning it costs us money and it has no way of making money, right? And so I look at things like, I don't know, Splash Mountain, Six Flags. At the end of their ride, do you know what they have? At the end of every one of those big brown tube rides where you put the whole family in it? They have water cannons that you tap a credit card and you get to spray the guys. Why can't we put that in our splash pad to help fund it? We turn it from an entitlement into a profit, right? Just a little bit out of the box thinking, and all of a sudden these social programs start becoming profit centers. In Tempe, you know what they do with parks like that? They put pads and they put sewer and electricity and they rent that to concessionaires to help offset the cost, if not generate profit. Not everything has to be money going out. Sometimes you can get money coming back. After 3 kids that grew up in the splash pads out here, if there was water cannons for a water fight that cost money, they would be peeling, that credit card would be on fire.
As the incumbent, you have 8 years of a track record. I'm a conservative, have been a conservative. I've been a member of this club for nearly 20 years. I've been a member, an associate member of the Lake Havasu Republican Women Club as well for nearly 20 years. I have a record and I am a conservative.
Okay. Are you in favor of the Planning and Zoning Commission members be elected rather than appointed?
Yeah, I think they should be elected, but I think they should be vetted. I don't know that developers should be on there with conflicts of interest. My wife asked me to run for planning and zoning a while back, and I was like, Stacy, I own a real estate company. I can't do that. You know, even if I'm not that heavily involved in it, it's still a perceived conflict of interest. So yeah, I think they should be elected, but we need to be very careful about who we elect, you know. For example, if you look at the campaign supporters right now, I've run hats and flags and swag, and you know, we do our meet and greet at a restaurant, right? Look where the meet and greets are being held. It's a developer.
Yeah. So I think that was an attack on me. So I have met with citizens in all sorts of forums, whether it be a coffee shop. Tomorrow we're having an ice cream social at the London Bridge Resort Convention Center at 5:30. You're all welcome.
But we
to
don't have
attend.
big developers.
I've met with real estate folks. I've been in front of organizations and groups throughout the community, and I will continue to be open to all organizations and meet with all groups. So when it comes to the question, was Planning and Zoning Commission elected or appointed? I believe state law dictates that they are to be appointed by the city council. So if state law were to change, I could support something along those lines, but right now that's not a possibility.
Okay. Airbnbs are private businesses that are run in our residential communities. We are seeing many other businesses such as mechanics next door to our homes. What can be done about this? They're ruining our neighborhoods.
Okay, so the Airbnb subject, this came around COVID time. When California is closed and Lake Havasu is open, we have an influx of 1 million people, and people will buy houses, and some of those houses paid themselves off in 3 years. That's how much they were rented, and that is not fair to a neighborhood to run a business like that. That being said, I am a huge believer in capitalism, and with anything, they ebb and flow. Owning a real estate company, we sold some of those Airbnbs. Guess what? About 50% of them went back to single-family homes. okay? Now, as far as running a mechanic shop, we've all seen the junkyards, and some people are literally running mechanic shops. That is light industrial. That does not belong in a neighborhood. So, that's
Then why is it?
why is what?
Why are they allowed?
Lack of code enforcement, mostly.
Lack of code enforcement. Okay, so what's the next step?
Again, same thing as the homeless. You start enforcing the laws on the books. This is not rocket science.
So you're saying we already have laws that we're not enforcing?
100%
Correct. So
correct.
our code enforcement, I went to the Lake Havasu Opoly deal, and they went up there, and Jeff Tinman says, you know, we got 1,200 complaints, and we resolved 1,100 of them, and that was supposed to be a good track record. Well, I talked to a buddy of mine that used to run code enforcement for Carlsbad. He goes, Dave, if they got 1,200 complaints and they did not resolve 1,198 of them, they did something grossly wrong. Things are not being enforced. It's across the board.
Yeah, so when it comes to Airbnbs, I have been on the forefront of advocating to change state law. So when this changed, it was 2016, when state law changed. Jeannie Kench has actually been side by side with me in this effort, and we've been very successful in getting some legislation changed so that we can better manage the Airbnb situation in our communities. Airbnbs have been in Lake Havasu City since the 1970s. People have always rented homes here, but before, we were able to manage it at the local level. And in 2016, they took that ability away from us, the state legislature, and that's what changed. And so we had to advocate, and each year we got a little bit more from the legislature to give us the tools. This year we were so close to getting the final thing that we needed, but unfortunately it did not make it through the finish line. It made it through the House. It did not make it through the Senate, but we worked really, really hard with Representative Bliss to get that bill together. And again, our assessors worked really hard on this front for us as well, and we'll continue to do that so they can better manage our neighborhoods. I agree, we're losing the fabric of our neighborhoods because we don't have neighbors anymore. We took the neighbors out of neighborhoods, and that's a problem. And so we need to be able to get these additional tools so we can better manage the situation with Airbnb. And then when it comes down to businesses operating inside of a neighborhood, there are some things that, again, state law just recently changed. You can now have homemade baked goods or tamales made in your home, and people can go purchase them from your home and not use a regular bakery or commissary. So state law just changed. That was a couple of years ago that occurred. And so we're always fighting to make sure that we have local control. You'll hear me talk all the time. Government closest to the people is the most effective. We can make choices, and we can make rules for Lake Havasu City because we live here, we understand it, we know it. We don't need the state telling us how to do that. So I'll continue to advocate for local control. If you have a situation right now where you have a repair shop or something along those lines that is in your neighborhood, that's not allowed. So call code enforcement and we will come out. We have code enforcement officers. There is a process in which has to be followed, and we will address the situation if there's a code violation, and that's what we'll do. What I've heard several times this evening is we're being offered as residents California solutions for Lake Havasu City problems. You're not going to get that from me. I'm from Lake Havasu City. This is my home, and I'm going to provide solutions that make sense for us.
Cal, as mayor, do you have any control as to what businesses or events are allowed or not allowed to come to Lake Havasu?
Yeah, great question. So a lot of times we are told that the city council is keeping out this restaurant or that restaurant, or they don't want this business, or that a certain business might be keeping out another business because of competition. Nothing could be further from the truth. And so we work really, really hard with our partners at the Partnership for Economic Development to try and do business retention, so retaining the businesses we have in Lake Havasu City, and then also working to attract new businesses. And those are the priorities that our residents bring forward. So, additional grocery stores, additional shopping, additional retail, those types of things. We work really hard to be able to get here through site selection and recruitment and letting folks know the resources that are available for them to relocate to either Arizona or to Lake Havasu City. So, no, we don't have that ability to say, no, we're not going to allow this business or that business. We also don't have the ability to say no to events. There's a process. And folks can go through the special event process at the city or work with our partners at Go Lake Havasu, but there's not that ability for us to make those decisions. The city council doesn't vote on those things, but one of the great things about Lake Havasu City is the quality of life we enjoy. We are able to have really amazing, iconic events nearly every weekend when weather is working for us. We have such amazing local homegrown businesses, whether it be a restaurant, a shop, an eatery, that we can go and we can talk with the owners and we can see them and we can enjoy what it is that they're offering in our community. And we're open for others as well. So if others are interested in relocating Lake Havasu City, we're open for business and we'd love to have you.
Okay. About active city code enforcement over trash, broken down cars, RVs, storage units, and commercial vehicles in the front yards. It's destroying our property values.
So right now, our code enforcement is 100% reactive. They are not proactive. You have to make the phone call for them to go. They will not drive around and see this. So one of the biggest things for me, I've been here since 2011, like I said, who misses the stars? You can't see them anymore. You want to know what that's from? That is from new developments putting in big bright lights on the RV garages that go up. Anybody, you could say, no, yes you can, and no you can't, but I'm telling you, I've lived here. Just before I moved my mom out here a year ago, in Carlsbad, in North County, you could see the stars better than you could see them here in Lake Havasu. So what we need is more active code enforcement. I believe we actually need more staff in code enforcement, and we need them actually patrolling and saying, these lights are too much, that junkyard's gotta go. You know, these unregistered vehicles, you cannot have.
Yep.
And on top of that, some of these food trucks, they're really skirting some laws, so they gotta take a look into that too.
So when it comes to code enforcement, we currently have a reactive code enforcement division. We have some proactive components of it. One of those is actually campaign signs. 4 years ago, or 2 years ago, after the campaign season, we had lots of residents that were complaining about campaign signs. So we are proactive when it comes to the campaign signs if they're in the wrong spot or they're not supposed to be where they're at. There's a whole code section for that. The pendulum will swing, so it was completely reactive. During our last general plan process in 2016, there was some discussion about making it more proactive. And other than the Unisource case, I've never seen the council chambers so packed with people opposed to their local government telling them where they can park their vehicles in their yard. Shocking. But then we started getting more feedback and more conversation with the community and more residents coming forward saying, no, it can't be, we need to do something. And so about 2.5 years ago, the council did increase our code where now the vehicles don't only have to be operable, so they have to be operable, they also have to be insured. So now someone has to make an investment in insurance on a monthly basis in order for those cars to be there. They have to have their wheels on, and then if you are going to be a person that's going to be redoing a car, so maybe you're a car enthusiast and you want to do a kit car or something along those lines, you can. Maybe 10 years ago, we might have had a vacant lot or 2 or 3 between our homes. We don't have that as much anymore. So as the infill is occurring and we're getting closer and closer to each other, some of the light pollution or some of the folks that are your neighbors.
Then those of us who live here and support the city year round, where do you stand?
Well, I think it's literally the name of my campaign, Havasu First. We're here for the citizens of Lake Havasu. We're here to address the citizens of Lake Havasu and find out what their needs are and what their wants are. You know, Havasu's grown. It used to be solely reliant on tourism. There's a reason why Robert McCulloch would fly people here and bought the London Bridge. That is the biggest aggregate of tourism in Lake Havasu to this day, right? But we've grown now. We have more full-time residents. We have retired LHPD, we have fire department residents. The landscape's changed. We are not solely reliant on tourism anymore. But what we are lacking is any kind of industry or any kind of opportunities for our youth other than barista or detailer. We have to bring some industry here. You know, they were talking about the PED earlier. That's $500,000 a year. Show me like 5 businesses they brought in 30 years. I'd like to see it, because other than Buffalo Wild Wings, which was actually a Jared Portsfield, I don't really think they do anything. I don't think they brought any businesses here. I haven't even won yet. I have additive manufacturing companies calling me saying, hey, can we start building out there? I got some of my old aerospace friends saying, I will look at moving 5th Access, the entire shop, to Lake Havasu, if you can give us some land that we can build on, right? Like, how is it I'm getting these phone calls and some of the guys, we're spending $500,000 a year on this, and I don't think they bring anything to the table.
the incumbent, I have a track record, and you can see where I stand on that. I always go to work every single day with the interest of our Lake Havasu City residents and what's in the best interest for them always. There will be people that will come to me, we even heard it tonight, that if we build a track or if we do this, that it's gonna bring this event or that event. That's a great byproduct, but is it really what is in the best interest of our community and the residents of our community is always where I'm gonna start with. This council, we have invested in tourism and economic development, but we changed the rules on it. We changed the rules of engagement. Lake Havasu City was founded on tourism, not only with Mr. McCulloch bringing folks here, but many of you in this room discovered this through tourism. A visit to Lake Havasu City and you thought, man, this place is special, and you went home and maybe sold your business or got a different job or retired and you moved here and you relocated here, again, through tourism. That story is over and over again. So back in the 80s, a 3% bed tax was added to all hotel stays. That was, again, in the 1980s. In the 90s, then a 1% food and beverage tax was added. And at that time, it was 75% was going to go Lake Havasu of those revenues, and 25% was going to go to economic development. And so that fund is about $4.2 million or so, approximately. What we did as a council is we said, we're going to do a contract for service for both economic development and tourism. And these are the expectations we have on tourism development and on economic development. We're going to invest $1.6 million a year with Go Lake Havasu and $500,000 a year with our partnership for economic development. The other 2.1 million or so goes into the general fund to offset the additional cost of police and fire that tourism generates because of that, especially with the Airbnbs being throughout the neighborhoods. Now they're not in one central area. We're spending additional monies on those areas. So I do believe that tourism is important. I believe other things are important as well, but I do think we have to continue to invest in tourism development and economic development to ensure that we have a sustainable community that's dynamic and diverse and has opportunities for everybody.
We're already stressed, and we keep adding more tiny homes, up to 16 on 1 acre sometimes. How do you feel about this?
They started with those tiny home deals as a way to create affordable housing.
They're not affordable.
They're not affordable. They're like 300 grand for a 600 square foot deal. And
Stupid.
I don't even understand how these things pass planning and zoning, because the parking in them alone, my truck wouldn't fit in there. My wife's car wouldn't
How do
fit
they
in
pass?
there. I hate the tiny homes. I abhor them, to be honest with you. I think they're absolutely horrible. I do want to touch just really quick on that term limit question there.
Okay.
We keep hearing, over and over that experience matters and leveraging relationships. Leveraging relationships. What happens when you have relationships for that long? They're not relationships. They become a little too cozy, right? That's why I'm in favor of term limits. Absolutely. Absolutely it happens.
And what would you say term limits would be? Two
terms, yeah.
Two
Same as
terms.
president.
Okay. Oh, so what's good enough for the president? Good enough for Havasu.
I think so too.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Oh, what was the question? Oh, yeah. Let me get to the question. What was the question? Hey, I turned the page. I turned the page already. Our sewer and water are already stressed, and we keep adding more tiny homes, up to 16 on 1 acre. So how do you feel about this, and what are you going to do about it?
Sure, yeah. So what we're seeing right now is some of our multifamily lots that are developing, and that's what is occurring right now. As it was envisioned, it would be, two-story apartment homes, those types of situations. However, that's where the density of 16 per acre comes from, is that you would have multiple story apartments, the traditional type of an apartment. It's been discovered that on these tiny homes, they could either get them up quicker, make more money, whatever that was that occurred there, and that's what they did. And so our council went and did some additional codes when it comes to Swanson in the area, where there now has to be architectural features and bump outs to try and encourage the traditional development instead of the tiny home situation. But in many cases, that's allowable. It's zoned that way. It's always been zoned that way. They did not have to come in and get that rezoned. When it comes to our water and wastewater infrastructure, it's not taxed. So we built out our sewer system in Lake Havasu City for full build out. And so we have capacity in our sewer system. Doesn't mean we don't have to continue to do maintenance. We actually just refinanced our sewer debt last year. we didn't change the length of it. We just changed it so we get a lower interest rate, and now we are receiving $1.2 million a year in savings on that debt. So $1.2 million a year in savings on our sewer debt without changing anything else. And that, again, was the good fiscal management that we have at the city currently.